to make sure that we're all playing the same chord changes. And what are some of the things that you heard? What are some things you heard? Is it possible to dim this a little bit?
Yeah.
Please.
Just it's the board only on the right, furthest bottom right thing. You can just pull it down a little bit. It'll dim all the lights.
What are some things you heard? That's a little better. No, I can't see that. Yeah.
Rather just like fast, like bebop notes the whole time, move like forward, develop slower ideas and start to solo especially.
Yeah, so it's developing ideas rather than just kind of playing all over the thing. Developing ideas, developing phrases, different starting points, etc. What else? What else did you hear? Yeah, right here.
Not afraid of space and silence.
Say one more time.
Not afraid of space and silence.
Not afraid of space and silence. Absolutely. Yeah, those are your friends. Space and silence are your friends. Making space part of the solo is important. Why is that important? Why is leaving space and making space part of the solo an important element of it? Anyone? Yeah.
I think it makes like what you're trying to say more clear. Because like if you're talking just like in a normal conversation, you say like 5 sentences all put together, like with no space in between, and you're like, well, I don't even know what you're trying to say right now. But then like leaving space leaves time and like, I don't know, it like lets the idea settle in more.
It lets someone kind of assimilate the idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's processing time. You know, processing time. That's how I think about it. And not only for the person who's playing, but for the musicians they're playing with, and also for the audience. Right? So this assimilation time is very, very important. Yeah.
I noticed in the solos where you would like start not like too crazy and it get more noise on, and then you just keep going and you start with
What was the last part of that?
there'd be like a crash and start over again.
Yeah, so kind of like a wave almost. Yeah. So it didn't start super crazy, but it would move into certain things, certain elements of the solo. It would crash and then start all over again. Nice, I like that. I like that visual.
There were a lot of dynamics, and it wasn't just, now we're loud, now we're soft, now we're really soft, now we're loud. It was smooth, it connected, it made sense, and when it would build, then you bring it down and then bring it back up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dynamics. There's an ebb and a flow within it. So again, you were kind of you're making a wave also, which kind of gets to what they were talking about also with the wave. I do think of music kind of as a wave also when it's being performed. I give an analogy sometimes of walking across a river, right? And that the current of the water is kind of the current of the tune, if you will, kind of like the tempo. Some rivers are kind of a slow tempo, and then there's others that are, Johnny Griffin tempo. It's like 360, 380, and but you're trying to navigate. Also, as you're walking across that river, you're trying to navigate. When you're playing a tune, even if it's a blues, we're trying to navigate the chord changes, right? And they can be very simple, but there's still some navigation that has to go. And for me, when I'm thinking about where I'm pausing within a solo, is similar to where I would pause if I'm walking across that river, right? I'm aware that at the bottom of the river, right, not only is there current, right, which is kind of the speed, but the navigation part is the chord changes, and there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of loose rocks, a lot of slippery stones, this kind of thing. So when I pause going through the river, or if you were walking through the river, and you wanted to take a little moment to pause, would you choose to pause on a stone that's slippery and uneven and loose, or would you choose to pause on a rock that has some stability to it? What do you think?
You'd want stability, and I like the analogy of like a river, because when you're playing music, it's not that you're doing whatever you want, not knowing where you're going. You have a directive and you have a goal, and you want to get to that goal, but you can be strategic with how you move.
Mm-hmm. Right, and yes, you do want to have a point of stability, right? And so if you think of the first three letters of point of stability, POS, pause, which I kind of like, right? So when you're pausing in a solo, think of the point of stability you may be at. And those points of stability, pretty much every time, are going to be chord tones. Might be the third, the fifth, the seventh, could be the ninth, which leaves the phrase open. Could be a sixth also, which also leaves the phrase open. Could be the tonic, but a lot of times the tonic, or the root of the chord, closes it off, right? And so again, thinking of these places to wait a moment, allow for the assimilation time that we talked about, see what's going to happen in the rhythm section, if someone's going to kind of come in and fill up a little bit of space or whatever. So thinking about this in that way, it allows us to kind of take a journey, right? And we're trying to tell a story. We're trying to take a journey and tell a story within the music, and to share that story, that composition, that spontaneous composition within that. Now I will say this, that the word improvisation has nothing to do with music. And I'm going to leave that with you for a few minutes to think about. And Caleb and I were talking earlier and talking about the idea of spontaneous composition when we're playing the solo. And I very much believe in that. Some of the elements that I work on with my students, and I've been teaching at Vanderbilt University for 10 and a half years now. And there's a number of things that I work with them on. And one of which is every semester to take 2 tunes and to work them through all 12 keys. Very, very slowly. I'll say this, nothing above 80 beats a minute. Now the reason for this is, there's a number of reasons for it. It absolutely changes their playing. So when you're going from, let's say, the key of B flat concert, which is a pretty common key, and you move up a half step, you don't have your licks anymore available to you in that key. There are familiarities on every instrument, shapes and patterns that work in certain keys. And so you have to start thinking compositionally, you have to start thinking about really playing the changes in those other keys. And the difference that I've noticed in my students from doing that is profound, And so every semester they're doing this, every semester. 2 tunes in all 12 keys. And I have them learn the melodies in a few different keys also. One of the other things that I have them do, which I think has been very, very helpful, is to record themselves as they're playing these tunes they're working on. And then I have them transcribe one course of their solo, not in the original key. So again, I'll have them playing through whatever tune they've chosen, or tunes they've chosen, and I'll have them record themselves and then transcribe one course of their solo, not in the original key. And then they bring it in and they play it, we talk about it. We talk about why certain things work, why certain things don't work, how to change the things that don't work into things that do work, right? And so that's kind of the fun part, is finding things that don't quite fit the changes, or don't voice lead into the next chord change. very well, and how we can manipulate that, so I can show them next time, like, okay, well, think about it this way, right? And, the other thing I have them do is I have them transcribe a solo on that tune from a player that they like. It may be on saxophone, it might be on piano, might be on trumpet, might be on trombone, might be on the bass. But to get the perspective of another player playing the tune that they're working on. And working that transcription in a way that they're really following it, like getting underneath the source. When you work on a transcription, when I have my students work on a transcription, I tell them, I said, I want you to be underneath that player. I want you to feel like you're their shadow. And I want you to play soft enough so that when you're playing with the recording, all you're hearing is them. Unless you're a little out of sync and then you'll hear yourself. So I have a student who's working on, I have a couple of students who are working on Cannonball Adderley transcriptions. And they're tricky tunes, they're tricky transcriptions. And but they're getting them. And they're getting to a point where, as they're playing, I'm hearing Cannonball, and I know they're playing, but I can't hear them. And I love that. Because what that shows me is that they're getting the phrasing, the articulation, the dynamics, the tone, all these things, and they become the shadow. It's almost like if you see these big flocks of birds flying together, right? This is what I want. I want it to feel like that there's such a beautiful flow to it that you can't really tell the difference in what you're playing and what the other person is playing. The reason I think transcriptions are so important also is that to understand not only the history of the music, but to understand how the masters of this music have played it, and to be able to study all the different elements that are in there. The tone and dynamics, the articulation, the rhythm and time, the harmony. And to do that, you have to listen to all those different things. And by listening to those things, by assimilating those elements, by playing along and imitating, right? This helps you to capture the spirit and the essence of how they played. And eventually you can take those elements, those ideas, the spirit of the music, the intensity, the quietness, the vibrato, taking the spirit of that music and making it your own. I have a saying I have a lot of sayings that are up in my studio at Vanderbilt, in my office. And one of them says, through imitation comes originality. Through imitation comes originality. And what do you think I mean by that? What do you think I mean by that? Anybody? Put your hand up. Yeah, what you think?
Yeah, it's like when you're learning to speak like when you're a baby. You're not when you're saying those things, they're things that you've taken from somebody, but as you know how to say them, you begin to own them. Stuff that you get to actually say that like is part of you, but you know it's gonna be right.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Someone else has something they want to say?
Just when you listen to other players and transcribe from other players, you can kind of learn their techniques, and you can kind of learn like a ton of really good habits and stuff that they use, and you can kind of develop it in your own playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah. Yeah, so the idea of kind of stealing ideas from people, you know, the way someone might hold a note or bend a note, a certain line they might play. You transcribe it, go, wow, and I really love this. And you imitate it, and then eventually you find your own way through. Again, it's not unlike language, which we were talking about. When you're first learning how to speak, you're imitating through sounds that people are showing you and giving to you. And eventually, you kind of come up with your own rhythm of your voice, the way you put words together, the way you describe something is going to be different than the way someone else describes something. If I said, come up with 3 sentences to describe a slice of pizza, for example, right? You would all come up with 3 different sentences, although the subject matter is the same. So we're using the same subject matter, the set of chord changes. We're agreeing on a tempo, right? We're agreeing on a feel. But we're saying very different things about that same subject matter. Right? Does this make sense? Okay. So, all these things that we've drawn out of what you heard, this helps you to become a better listener. When you're listening to music on your own or with your friends, I call it active listening, or the act of listening. I like them because they sound the same. Active listening or the act of listening. And you can, especially when you're listening with someone else is going to hear something a little different than what you maybe have heard. And so when you're done listening to it, or in the middle of it, you can talk about it. You say, "Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And you might not have heard it. And then you go back a little bit into the tune, and then they point it out to you, and you go, "Oh man, I would have missed that." Right? You get to start to share these ideas, and you start to open up the piece of music in a way that it starts to unfold. Now, here's the cool thing about that, is that the music, as it unfolds and becomes more familiar, may at the same time also become more mysterious. And you may wonder, like, wow, man, how did that happen? These aren't the same changes that are here. They've taken it, they've substituted some changes. They're going in a different direction with things. Well, that note shouldn't work over this chord change, but it does, right? And maybe it's where they came in from, maybe it's where they left from. The direction, or the intention, or the tone, or the rhythm, or the articulation. All these different elements come into play when we're playing. All that said, what are some elements that make up a good solo? What are some elements that make up a good solo? Think for a second, think for like 10 or 15 seconds about a solo that you really love. And see if you can pull out of that an idea or two, kind of a specific idea or two, about what it is that you remember about that, what it is that kind of grabs your attention, or gives you goosebumps, or makes you go, oh man, like you get jazz face, and like, oh wow, it's so great, What is it that excites you about the solo? What is it about it that brings you back to it, to listen again, and then maybe again, and before you know it, you listen to it 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times. And it starts to unfold, it starts to become familiar. You start to be able to sing it, you hear it, you anticipate what's coming up. Right? What are some things for you that constitute a good solo? What do you think? Anybody? Yeah.
The rhythm.
The rhythm, what about the rhythm?
Just the way it's like sounds,
Mm-hmm.
how it's played.
Okay, the way it sounds, probably the way it feels also.
Yeah.
And so do you prefer, and there's no right or wrong answers here, by the way. Is this or just
It's a handle underneath the lever.
handle underneath the, oh, I see.
So it's the
Yep.
it's the easy
So regarding rhythm, do you prefer a constant rhythm within a solo, or do you prefer there to be a variety of rhythm in a solo?
A variety.
A variety. Why?
Just because it doesn't sound like the same thing over and over again.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like the same thing over and over again. Great, okay. What else? What other element? Yeah.
Dynamic contrast.
Dynamic contrast. What do you mean by that?
The volume fluctuates throughout the solo.
Okay, so are you saying that dynamics are volume?
No. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. What do dynamics provide in music?
Change.
Change, good. What else?
Color.
Color, what else?
Variety.
Variety, what else?
Depth.
Depth, what else? Look, here's the thing, dynamics provide a lot of stuff, right? You know, there's already, what, 4 or 5 things, what else?
Entertainment.
Entertainment, maybe it could certainly provide some entertainment. What else?
Suspense.
Suspense, yeah. You shouldn't have said it so quickly.
Knife Lamorne.
What else? It's a lot of things that dynamics provides. There's one thing in particular that I'm looking for that helps to provide all these other things. And I would ask you again, are dynamics just volume? No, it's a lot of other things, right? So what else? What am I looking for?
Texture.
Texture? That's not what I'm looking for, but that's another good one. Yep. Tonality, yeah, helps with the tonality. What else? Yep.
Is it feeling?
Feeling, very, very close. What's the other word for feeling? Everybody?
Emotion.
Emotion, yes. Dynamics provide emotion. And because they're providing emotion, they're providing all of these other things, these many things you came up with, and the things that that other folks came up with also, right? So, thinking about dynamic contrast, if we change the word dynamics to emotion, right? What kind of contrast do we have?
Big contrast.
What?
Large contrast.
No, we're changing the word. We're changing the word dynamic to emotion.
We have emotional contrast.
We have emotional contrast. That's exactly right. So we have an emotion. Thanks for giving it away. So we have emotional contrast going on, right? You can think of it as dynamic contrast also, which is perfectly fine. But realize and recognize that what you're hearing and feeling is actually emotional contrast. So that when we're asking you to play with more dynamics, we're actually asking you to play with more what? Emotion. It's exactly right. It's exactly right. So you heard dynamic / emotional contrast in what we were playing. Great. And we sort of unwrapped that into a lot of different elements also, right? Depth and suspense, color and timbre, and all sorts of things. Yeah, great. What else? What else? Yeah.
In terms of like good solos, I think like collaborating with the rhythm section is good because like, I guess for an example, like I saw a video of where this guy's soloing over a 2/5 progression. The pianist plays a flat 9 on 5, and the saxophonist plays a flat 9 on 5. So it gives like this really cool like feel. Towards the end of the solo, it was like really cool.
Yeah. So having a collaboration with the rhythm section is something that can really draw you back into a solo. So when that happens, when there's a connection like that, how do you think that occurs?
Just listening.
Because they're listening, that's exactly right. Yeah, because they're listening to one another. And when you listen, you can have a really great dialogue. Right? You can have a really great dialogue if you're listening. If you're not listening, chances are pretty slim that you're gonna have much of a conversation. Right? And so, so learning to listen is a great fundamental to work on. And the word listen gives you a clue in the word itself on how to become a better listener. And that is if you switch the letters around of the word listen, L-I-S-T-E-N, S-I-L-E-N-T. Same letters, exactly the same letters. Listen and silent are the same letters. And there's a big clue right there on how to become a better listener. Make sense? Yeah. So what else in a solo, and one of your favorite solos, what other things do you notice in there that brings you back to it? What else? Yeah.
I like repetition when they play a lick and then like do a slight variation on that lick and like they come back to it.
Yeah. So repetition and kind of theme and variation. Right? Who? What? You play saxophone?
Trumpet.
Trumpet?
Yeah.
Okay. So who might be a good example of that? Someone you listen to.
Well, I really like Lee Morgan.
Lee Morgan. Yeah, it's a great example. So Lee might take a line and kind of repeat it. He might start to change it rhythmically. He might start to change it harmonically. He might compress it. He might stretch it. He might play it backwards or invert some of the notes. You know, I've been having my students do this, work on this 3-6-2-5 progression. In the key of C, it would be E, then rather than going to the A, going down to the E flat to the tritone sub. So E minor 7, E flat 7, D minor 7, G7 to C, right? And I've given them a sheet of manuscript paper. And I tell them, I say, I want you to write out 12 lines over this progression. Bring it in and we'll play it together. And then what we start to do is, sometimes we'll just take one line and work on it for like 30 minutes, right? And we'll start to figure out different ways that we can use the notes of that line to change the phrase. Might be something as simple as moving octaves, right? It might be a displacement of the rhythm. It was like, speed up, right? Something like that. You might move, rather than going beat up, you might do it on beat 2. Beat up, go, beat up, right? So on, so as you start to displace things, and you start to move them around, you might turn some eighth notes into triplets. You might turn some stuff into chord notes. You might invert again. You might invert by the octave. You might play one phrase from the back of the phrase, or as you look this way, from the back of the phrase, play it backwards, then play the next one forward, play the next one backwards, and then the next one forward. Or you might play the first one forward, the next one backwards, forward, backwards, or forward, backwards, backwards, forwards. Or you can even like invert in the middle of that. 2 notes as they are, then play the last 2 notes. So, right, so you take one idea and really start to morph it. Again, stretching it, contracting it, playing it with a different articulation. It might be super mushy one time, might be really clearly articulated the next. It would be half and half. Any number of different things, right? And so as you start to explore these ideas and you start to recognize them in other people's solos that you like, chances are pretty good that you're going to enjoy your own playing if you start to roll those elements into that, right? And one of the ways to do that is to practice slowly, right? To start to get the subdivision really in your body. So if you're practicing it, say 80 beats a minute, you want to feel that 16th of a subdivision. Right? And I've got the pulse going, I can feel it in my body right here, whatever tempo I'm at here. And so you want to be able to keep that constant tempo. And you want to be able to play a piece of music that you're working on at a slow enough tempo that you can realize the ideas that you're trying to play. Right? If you're trying to play a tune at 140 and you can't get the ideas out, is that really doing you any good? I would say no, right? And there's another phrase, another saying on my wall, and that is, don't confuse activity with progress. Don't confuse activity with progress. Right? What do you think I mean by that?
Well, you can't just do lots of stuff. You have to keep it like moving forward, I guess.
Yeah, you have to keep it moving forward, and the way you keep it moving forward is to work on things slowly, to get the idea, then to be able to progress from there into something else. And like there are recordings of Clifford Brown practicing, for example. Lee Morgan studied with Clifford Brown. I don't know if you knew that or not, but when he was very young, he studied with Clifford. And Clifford is working out ideas, trying to find, as his wife was telling him to take out the trash at some points, you know? And that's real life, man. Like, we're working on stuff. We're trying to get things done. We're trying to find ideas in what we're playing. And so, you know, you don't need a rhythm section, you don't need iReal Pro. You can work on things and really try to hear them on your own. So if I'm playing the blues, so I'm feeling the groove, right? I'm trying to hear the changes, but I'm also trying to outline the changes that we're playing, right? I'm trying to play rhythmically, I'm trying to follow up my ideas with other ideas that to me make sense, right? And I'm trying to have a variety of those ideas, and I'm not just playing 8 notes, right? Because there's a lot more rhythm than that. And as we learn to subdivide, we can start to create within those pockets of rhythm as well. And one of the ways you can work on that is to put on something like iReal Pro, where there's a groove going on behind it. Again, slowly, and just sing rhythmically to it, right? Let's do blues. 1, B flat. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sing rhythms. I'm not going to try to sing pitch, okay? I'm just going to sing rhythms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Spit it up, way also. You can sing ideas, try to play the rhythms back, right? If you're a good singer, which I am not, and you're able to get pitch within the chord changes, great, try to play that back. But even if you're just getting the rhythmic ideas, do that. Or you could sing a chorus, a couple of choruses through rhythmically, go back, transcribe it, and then put notes to it, right? Start with just the rhythms, and look at the chord change and go, okay, what can I play over this? And that can open up some ideas. Here's the thing, that I want to find creative ways of being creative. I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I don't want to play the same lick on my solo over and over again. Right? It's just not fun for me. It's like having meatloaf every night. After a few nights, you're kind of like, really? We're having meatloaf? Yeah. Thank you. Right? Look, there's nothing wrong with meatloaf, but all the time, it's going to be a little boring. Like, we have to have some variety. And so as you explore these different ideas of rhythm and harmony, space, repetition, all the different elements that you love to hear in solos, when you start to explore those things in your own solo, it starts to become a nice solo. It starts to have elements and characteristics of the solos that you really like. The solos that keep bringing you back to a piece of music. Right? One of the ways to work on this is to think of 10 characteristics that you want to have in your own playing, in your own solo, and write them down. Might be rhythmic variety, might be harmonic sophistication, might be have a lot of space, might be variety of articulation, might be intensity, might be soul, might be mellow, it might be intense. I mean, whatever it may be, try to come up with 10 characteristics that you want to have in your solo. And they'll start coming into your solo as you start to develop further. And keep it in your case, put it up in your practice room, have a reminder somewhere, put it on your phone, have a reminder somewhere when you play that these things, these characteristics, are things that you want to bring into your own play. Does this make sense to everybody? These are concrete ways to work on this. Concrete ways to work on this. Now, the other thing I suggest also, and every student of mine that has studied with me over the years, and their very first lesson, and I did this at BYU yesterday also, I had a clinic that I gave, and this was the very first thing that we did, was to identify 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses in your own playing. I don't think of them as positive and negative. I think of them as strengths and weaknesses. And write them down. Come up with at least 5. And then you have to figure out, how do I work on my weaknesses? What are the things I have to work on? So someone give me a weakness in your playing. Anybody?
Confidence.
Yeah? Say again?
Confidence.
Confidence. Great. That's something I see a lot, right? And so, if someone puts confidence down in the weaknesses column, I know exactly how to work on it. I know exactly how to work on it. And that is to work the fundamentals with them. To give them the understanding of foundation, right? What instrument do you play?
Guitar.
Guitar. So to understand the foundations of harmony and rhythm, right? So the things that I would do is I would go back to some very basic ideas. We would play back and forth together, you know? And we would go with one chord. That's where we would start. And to get an understanding of the vertical nature of harmony, right? To understand that, so like a C7, for example, has C, E, G, and B flat. Those are the 4 notes. And they They start at the C, and they go up, and they start at the C, and they go down. So C, B flat, G, E, C, B flat, and C, E, G, B flat, C, G, B flat, right? So we're using a line segment of what is actually a line. Does that make sense? So I would take those notes, right, and we would explore them. And then we would take notes from another chord. Let's say that we were looking at A minor 7, A, C, E, and G. And to be able to identify them vertically, understanding what I call the bones of the chord, right? The skeletal structure of the chord. Once you understand that, then you can start to branch off from there. And by understanding harmony, by understanding how to move from one chord to the next, voice leading, okay? You start to have a good understanding of how you can start to kind of compose melodies within that. And once you have the understanding of that, once you kind of take the mystery out of that, right? You have the tools to be able to create something that's really lovely. And once you understand that you have those tools to be able to do that, then your confidence starts to build because you think, oh, I know what I'm doing. A lot of times for me, when I'm not confident, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. And that happens still fairly often. You know? So again, this is a process that we're in. This is a process of learning music, understanding the elements of music, understanding the complexities of music, understanding the fundamentals of music. And everybody I know, everybody I play with, still works on the fundamentals, right? It never ends. It never ends. So I encourage you to work on the fundamentals, to learn where all the notes are on the guitar, to understand that when you see a certain chord, to understand how it's built. And if you see, let's say you see a C7, sharp 11, flat 13, you're like, oh, what is that, right? Don't even worry about the sharp 11 and the flat 13 yet. Figure out what the C7 is, and then understand that those alterations are built off of that root. So the sharp 11 is telling you that 11 notes above the C has a sharp that is raised by a half step. So therefore the flat 13 notes above that C, it's going to be an A flat, you're going to lower it by a half step, right? And so once you start to understand these things on your instrument, not only intellectually, but aurally as well, and you can identify those sounds, that's when you start to be able to build things and to compose. And again, taking it very, very slowly at first. You know, iReal Pro is a great, great learning app. It's not something you want to go and play a gig on, right? But for learning exactly these types of things we're talking about, it's fantastic. You know, and I would recommend transcribing some solos. Get familiar with certain people and their playing. Try to write out a solo that you think sounds good, just over a simple blues. You know, you can just use just the chord tones also. That's another thing, is you can use just the bones, just the skeleton, right? So I'm going to play a solo using, we'll just do a 1-4-5 blues, okay? Again in B flat, and I'm only going to use notes of the chord tone, either 1, 3, 5, or 7 of each of the chords that we play. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. bones, right? I'm not trying to put the vascular system or the organs or skin or a shirt or pants or shoes or a hat or a coat. I'm only using the bones, right? So I can play a presentable solo just using the notes of the chord. I'm playing the changes. I'm playing them very literally. And if I was going to give you a lesson, that would be one of the things we would work on. Let's see if you can play literally just the changes and work on it slowly in a way that maybe you're only playing 1 or 2 notes per bar at first, which is fine, right? Start slowly and gradually move into a better understanding of what the rest of those notes are and how to move from one chord to the next chord. Right? So if I end up on the E of the C chord, and my next chord is an F7 chord, I have one of 2 choices. I can either move up to the F or down to the E flat. That's voice picking. It's very simple. It's a simple concept. And it's something you can practice very easily. Even just playing 1 note per bar, you know? And you can do a lot playing 1 note per bar. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I didn't move from the same note, right? Just 1 note per bar. I'm moving around rhythmically and range-wise, right? Still just the same note. So you can explore things like this also. And by doing this, practicing things in a couple of different keys to start off with also, this helps to boost your confidence as well. Because you feel like, and you'd be correct with this, you feel like you have more information, right? And it's not like you're just guessing at playing something. You're like, okay, I know what to do here. And once you know what to do, there's more confidence within that. And you can build upon that as you move forward in your process. Yeah. That's such a beautiful thing to talk about. And a wonderful thing to admit that it's hard to be confident sometimes. Because I suffer from it too, you know? And how many people get nervous before they play? Yeah, well, look around, put them up, let me see. Put them up high, put them up high. Okay, I want you, don't keep up. I want you to look around, okay? You are not alone in this feeling, right? And I want you to notice too, my hand is up. My hand is up, okay, put it down before they fall asleep. My point with this is that most people have some kind of nerves. It may be anticipation, it may be like, oh man, I hope I don't mess up, whatever it may be, right? But look, every time I take this out of the case, I know 100% there are going to be mistakes. It's gonna happen. And I'm willing to go there. I try not to make the same mistake twice, but I know it's going to happen. There are going to be mistakes. Might be a wrong note. Goes by very quickly, by the way. Don't acknowledge it. Might be the wrong articulation that I'm trying to go for. Maybe a rhythmic thing, might be a harmonic thing. So many things. Maybe I might play the wrong dynamic. I might not be blending, I might be out of tune. All these things are little mistakes. It's okay. It's okay to make them, right? But try to learn something from it. Try to learn something from it. And so, again, in your strengths and weaknesses column, if your intonation isn't very good, figure out how to make it better. Do things like long tones with the tuner, from soft up to loud, back down to soft again, to control the embouchure muscles. Do it in different ranges of the instrument. Work on your arpeggiations. Like if you're having trouble harmonically with things, work slowly on arpeggiations. You can slow I reel down to 40 beats a minute. Pretty much anybody can play an arpeggio at that speed. Right? Just take it slowly. Don't be in a rush. Be patient with yourself. This process is really important. And as you're patient with yourself, you start to learn things. You know, when I'm working on a new tune sometimes, especially in a key that's not the familiar key to me, like I get to like C sharp on the instrument, or A flat on the instrument, or B, or F sharp, and those are not keys that we play in a lot. They're unfamiliar. And so sometimes I forget what key I'm in, right? Or I'll play a chord change and I'll just be like, wow, that doesn't sound right at all. And I'll look at the chord change, and I'm not even close, right? I am not even close. So it's frustrating to me sometimes. Even at the advanced age that I'm at, and that I've had a very long career so far, I still get frustrated sometimes. You know, it's no different than y'all. It happens. Accept it and move on.
Jeff?
Yes.
So we've got about 10, 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Would you be okay taking a question
Yeah.
or two if we have?
Yeah, maybe we get a couple players up here too.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? I keep yakking up here, I could yak all day. Yeah.
We're talking about your students transcribing stuff. Would you recommend having them write it down or just doing it by ear?
The question was regarding transcriptions. Do I recommend writing it down or doing it by ear? The answer to that is yes. I recommend both, actually. I think there are many benefits to just learning it by ear, but I think there are many benefits to writing it down also, which will help your sight reading in ways that you cannot even imagine. Because you've got to hear the line, you've got to learn the line, and then you've got to write it down in time. So sight reading is basically pattern recognition. So if you're writing down patterns after patterns, you start to hear, right? So it's an eighth rest, an eighth note, triplet, 2 eighth notes, and then a rest. Right? And so you start to hear it, you start to recognize it, you start to visualize it, and this helps pattern recognition. You know? So I would say both. I definitely say both. It's a great question. Yeah. Anything else?
So when you were talking about your stepping stones for like in your river
In my river, yes.
Yes. You talked about your like melodic stepping stones, but what would you say rhythmically are the things where you like take spaces or
Ooh, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before. That's great. So if I'm, so the question was thinking about rhythmic stepping stones through the river, not just melodic stepping stones and harmonic stepping stones, but melodic stepping stones. So if you're thinking of stability within a groove, where might that be?
I think the end of the phrase, but
Okay, so the end of the phrase might be, yeah. And so the end of the phrase, though, remember, we're not just talking about one bar. We're talking about like a phrase that may go 2, 3, even 4 bars. There's a phrase the other day I listened to, it was 7 bars long. It's a long phrase. But so where within the bar might be a solid place to stop a phrase? Could be a quarter note, yeah. Could be a whole note, yeah. But where within that bar? Like, should it be on the downbeat? Can it be on the end of a beat? Could it be on a 2 or a 4?
well, I
Yeah.
I would do it on upbeat if I'm like moving in a certain direction, but it's rhythm and it's gonna be adding certain things. It's gonna throw people off and it's gonna add weird suspense.
It could be, right?
Like funky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you could be on the and, or you could be on the downbeat of something.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about subdivision is that everything is either an up or a down. Right, so you have to have a good enough rhythmic sense to figure out where you want that phrase to end. Right? But yes, there are a variety of different, not only places to put that rhythm, but a variety of, I guess you might say, feelings that might go along with that also, right? So, something may feel really good if you put it on the downbeat, right? Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Downbeat, right? So there's so many varieties, but be confident where it is, because where you put it is going to feel stable. Harmony is different, right? Rhythm, you can put it almost anywhere, and if you have a good pocket and a good subdivision, it's gonna feel good wherever you put it. You're kind of making your own style. Does that make sense? And the variety is infinite. The variety is absolutely infinite, right? Again, harmony is different because there is a chord change that's going on. And so we're given a parameter. Within the rhythm, the parameter is wide as the subdivision. Does that make sense? It's a great question. And I don't know if it's a good answer or not.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me also. But I haven't really thought about it in that way because my time is strong. And when I put something somewhere, I'm going to put it there with confidence, right? So it's about subdivision. Yeah, great question.
Can I set you up with a question?
Yes, please.
Are you, you play the flectones,
Mhm.
play the master's band, your own music. So are you a jazz musician? Are you a pop musician? What kind of musician are you?
What kind of musician am I? Thank you, Caleb, for that very insightful question. I talk about this a lot, and I talk to my students about this a lot as well. I do not consider myself a jazz musician. I consider myself a musician, period. I play music. I don't care what genre it's in, right? And there are so many kinds of jazz. You know, is it Louis Armstrong? Is it Charlie Parker? Is it Ornette Coleman? Is it Wayne Shorter? Is it Snarky Puppy? What is it? What is it? I just think of it as music. I'm trying to find out how I play and how I can interact and have a dialogue with other musicians. So with my students, I'm not teaching my students repertoire, right? I'm having them work on repertoire. But I'm not telling them what kind of music they should be playing. That's their decision. I also have them compose a lot. And I tell them, I've told them so many times, I'm not trying to make you a jazz musician. I'm trying to make you a musician. You want to play music, right? I have to give you the tools to be able to go out there and play music. That's the idea behind all of it. So they call for a funk gig or a rock gig or a section or a soloist, doubling, all this stuff. These are things that we work on all the time. And what I was saying earlier about the foundation, the fundamental foundation, that's what we're working on. By the time they are done studying with me in 4 years, their foundation, man, they can build a skyscraper 20,000 feet high as far as I'm concerned. Their foundation is that strong. Right? So I'm giving them the tools to be able to go out and play music in any situation. And they're listening in a very wide way also to a lot of different kinds of music, a lot of different cultures of music, so that when the opportunity arises, they've at least heard some of it, and they know where to find the rest of it. That make sense? Yeah. It's important to be a wide musician, to listen to a lot of different things, yeah.
You won't believe this, but I am not one of those students. But I do have an
You are
observation.
listening.
I'm still a student, but I do have an observation and maybe have a comment, but, we played the one note solo you did, I think is really important because the simplicity of that is these kids are gaining confidence. You played that with emotion, you played it with confidence, we listened, we're not gonna feel any more emotion than what you said. And we listened with anticipation. I think the thing that just my observation was, and I have 200 salespeople and I have to motivate them, I don't know a damn thing about music, but one of the things, doing something exceptional, even if it's simple, brings out that emotion that you're looking for. And if you're a comedian, you need surprise. If you're providing a service, you need it to be appreciated and you need to exhibit that emotion in order to get it back, right?
Absolutely.
So it was just knowing that, and a solo that is simply tracking a melody that I completely expect isn't going to surprise me, and it's not going to evoke much of an emotion.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, thank you, without even knowing it, until...
You get that dollar back out.
That's right. Back to, do you remember one of the very first things I said? And I said, we'll come back to it later. Who remembers what it was? Yeah, I know you know. Yeah. The word improvisation has nothing to do with the word music. That's exactly right. And what you just said is the epitome of improvisation, right? So the word improvisation has a Latin root of improvisus, which translated, now dig this, translated means unforeseen or unexpected. A surprise. A surprise. So when we are spontaneously composing, okay, we're trying to come up with something that is unforeseen or unexpected. It's in the word. You have all the permission you could possibly need in the word itself. Right? Which I think is really amazing. But the word itself, improvisation, has nothing to do with music. It's the spirit of the composition, the spontaneous composition, of stringing sounds together, rhythms, all these different ideas. Yeah. So I know some of you have horns up. We have 5 minutes?
We do.
Yeah.
We'll make 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's all do a blues together, okay? Who has their horns? If you have your horns, come up front.
Vocals.
Yeah, well, vocalist, your horn is inside, right? Come on. And you just, it's easier probably just to face the stage, Joe. It's easier to just face the stage here. What we're going to do is we're going to go down, straight down through, and we're going to do 1 chorus apiece of a B-flat blues. We're going to do 1 chorus apiece of a B-flat blues. And I want you to think about, if they want to, yeah. And so what I want you to think about while you're playing are the things that we talked about. And one of the ways, come on. And one of the ways to do that is to really listen, okay? To try to follow up your ideas. To follow up your ideas by listening to what you're saying and what you're exploring. Okay? So we'll do one chorus and then maybe we'll go back through and do another chorus. And so vocalists, you can use this mic. You're strong.
Good job, Caleb. Thank you.
So vocalists, when it's your turn, come up to the mic. Okay? And so we're going to do a B flat blues. Again, we're going to do it at a slower tempo. And just a basic 1-4-5 blues. Okay? 1, 2. We're gonna go one time. 1, 2, and. So the next chorus through. I want you just to play the roots of the chord. G, F, or F, E flat, okay, in your pitch. Here we go. Just the roots of the chord. So the 1 chord, 2, 3, 4.
give it up one more time. Thank you all. Yeah.
All right, before we go, a couple things. First of all, great. Okay. Before we head out, first off, can we please thank our fantastic guest artist tonight. Jeff does have some CDs with him, and happy to autograph those if you want to pick one up, or you may be able to take a photo with him or whatever here. We would ask two things of all of you that are here. First, we would ask that you make sure you've signed in on the front desk so we can make sure to